did, because I think this is part of the glider pilot story. It's this getting there and then, there's nobody to take me home. So, Peter, can you tell us about Arnhem, please?
Well, it's all a bit embarrassing, really. I think I'll start at the beginning, or almost the beginning. I told you that I knew the number of my glider. That was about all I knew to start with. But I guess we were expected to do this sort of thing. And I had done, by that time I looked at my logbook after I got home, again of course, because I didn't have it with me. And I found that by Arnhem, I'd done 242 powered flights, and I think 243 glider flights, and it was my 250th solo landing. So I was very well experienced, and I think in retrospect for that, one just thanks the Army, one thanks the regiment for getting you into that position to land one glider with its contents in one pre-selected field, to land without hitting anything, it was just extraordinary. But in a sense, it was inevitable. We were just doing. I think we were educated to believe what our master was saying to us, to be to do naughty things, perhaps, but to believe, to listen to what your parents said. My parents wouldn't allow me to join the Air Force, although I felt that I could fly and wanted to fly, but they wouldn't have entertained that as early on. Otherwise, probably I wouldn't have been here today anyway. But I'm terribly conscious that I just happen to be a survivor, to be talking to you today, and it's a great privilege because my colleagues have been falling like nine pins really, and there aren't many of us left now. It's very sad. But we all had, most of us had little bits of chalk, literally schoolboy chalk, and I wondered what to put on the nose of my glider, and I put Jehovah Jireh, which are words, Jewish words from Genesis, and they mean very simply, the Lord will provide. And as I look back, that's what the Lord has done all this time, consistently. He's put up with me. I've been a bit of a renegade in some ways, but anyway, surprisingly, there was a good library in the prison camp where we were. We started off, well, I had a little escapade for 24 hours from Appledorn, which was the first place we were taken to after being captured. And I took the three glider pilots escaped from where we were anyway, and we got recaptured the next evening, the evening of the next day, by two Germans who were out shooting deer of all things. One of them wanted to relieve himself, and he thought that the little hideout where we were would be ideal and private. So he had his private excursion and was delighted, and really afterwards to have come out to shoot deer and finish up with 3 Allied prisoners. put our berries the wrong way round, by the way, because we thought we were rather obvious. And if you turned the berry inside out, it had a black inside, so it was quite good camouflage. Anyway, the rumour proved to be correct, and we were off by a cattle truck. If anybody's been to the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, there's one of the typical cattle trucks that they used out, sort of sticking out on railway tracks. And it was very nostalgic seeing that thing again. But anyway, we were carted off in one of these things to a place called Fallingbostel, which is, I think certainly was until recently a British base in Germany. And we were there about 3 weeks, and then taken by a cattle truck again through the outskirts of Berlin to a place called Sagen, or Sagen, S-A-G-A-N to us, Z-A-G-A-N to the Poles. And this particular camp actually has a museum these days, because it was a camp of camps, and among the people who were there were Stalag Luft 3, the dear old Air Force camp, where they escaped, and Hitler ordered 50 of them to be killed. I think 85 actually got out through the tunnel they dug. But anyway, that was next door to us, and the only reason that I sort of mention that is that I finished up with an RAF Greatcoat, 2 sizes too small at least, but I was so thankful for that, because it was the coldest winter that they'd had for a long time. And on February the 9th rather, 1945, they just closed our camp down completely, because we could hear the Russian guns in the distance, and they didn't want us to fall into the Russian hands, which is very fortunate actually, because those of us who did return via Russia, I think they were back about 2 months after I was. But anyway, I think when I was there, I read a number of books, including some Christian books, and I've left my diary at home accidentally, but anyway, I wrote little extracts from these books, and the odd hymn from the camp hymn book, which was a YMCA hymn book, and I've still got, I'm afraid, the camp's hymn book with the camp's moniker slapped on it, but I thought that they could do without it once I left. But after a week of, we had 2 weeks on 2 Sunday evenings or night times anyway, on open football pitches in the snow or otherwise. That was a good sort of start. But after a week, I got a carbuncle on my wrist, and that got me into a little hospital setup. And in fact, that was a blessing in disguise, because instead of being with thousands of, at the time, as we were to start with, I got onto a little group of a dozen under 2 elderly German guards, and literally they hired or requisitioned horse and cart, and literally we went from village to village by horse and cart going west. That was the only way that they knew was to get us away from the Russians. And we went west, and we went, I don't know how far, but then we went north, and we finished up at Brunswick at the, or towards the middle of March, the end of March. And in Brunswick, we were in a sort of incomplete prison camp, and very short of food. And a dear parachute sergeant major got the prison bosses by the scruff of the neck, I think, and said, "You're going to have a load of dead prisoners if you don't let me go for Red Cross parcels." And that's what he did. He went, he requisitioned a lorry and went to Danzig, I think, or somewhere in northern Germany, and collected a load of Red Cross parcels and came back with these, and it was just like Christmas, because we hadn't seen a Red Cross parcel for 2 or 3 months, and in fact we didn't see a Red Cross parcel for 3 months after we were captured, because we were sort of the fag end of the affair. But anyway, I finished up walking in my army boots, dear old army boots, marvellous army boots. 330 miles it worked out in the end, because the last few days of captivity, from the 10th of April to the 13th of April, I was released by the Americans who came through the village where we were. I was shaving with my safety razor, which I'd had for 7 months, so you can guess the blades were pretty inefficient. I managed to grow a moustache. That was the only thing that I managed to grow during that time. But I was incredibly fortunate in reflection in the fact that I never got dysentery. We lost 3 or 4 people, if not more. I think our friend who has a book about the glider pilot regiment, you'll find the casualties are mentioned, and I think we lost 3 or 4 people at least on that march. But I managed to stay at least fit, and the British were very efficient as far as I was concerned, because I was home in 6 days from being released. Absolutely amazing. We queued up to get on the plane, another Dakota, incidentally, flown in fact by a crew who had left Broadwell 10 minutes before me in September, because I've checked this up from a book about the RAF tug pilots, which I've got. And anyway, I didn't find this out at the time, but they were all 4 Canadians crewed this Dakota back, and I kept a diary during the whole time that I was a prisoner, well, particularly over that last 2 months, and it's not been edited or mucked about with, apart from the odd place name has been put in, because I didn't want the Germans to get hold of any places where we were well treated, because in sometimes during this period, again, it's peculiar to our little group or little groups. If we'd had no official rations by lunchtime, then the guards would turn their heads the other way and allow us to go knocking on doors. And sometimes we were given soup, sometimes we were given more, sometimes we were just outright refused. But it just depended. You couldn't do this in a town, but in the villages, where obviously they had plenty of food because they'd kept it for themselves, they were more generous, and they were very kind. Some of these people were very kind. In fact, one lady let me listen to the BBC News, which was a pretty daring thing to do. And the news bulletin was that we just crossed the Rhine. So that was, you know, mid to late March. So anyway,
That's absolutely fabulous, Peter. Thank you for that. That's just. I'm sure there are a few questions out there, and while we have Peter here, we ought to just milk him for every last piece of information that we have. Do we have?